This is Akashvani. In the program Insights, now we bring you a discussion on India-France Annual Defence Dialogue, Fostering Stronger Defence Ties. The participants are Commodore Uday Bhaskar, Defence Analyst, and Mayank Singh, Journalist.
Good evening, listeners. Today we have a strategic expert of eminence, Commodore Uday Bhaskar with us. And we are going to discuss the official visit of our Defence Minister Rajnath Singh ji to France and to Italy. In a major development in the meetings with defence officers from the countries of Italy and France, our Defence Minister also met the defence manufacturers of both the countries. And the buzzword which has come out from meetings in the two countries is coordination and cooperation in defence production. Good evening, Commodore Uday Bhaskar. Can you please make our listeners understand the relevance and the importance of this meeting?
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's visit to Europe, particularly to Italy and France, is very significant for two reasons. Number one, India and Prime Minister Modi have been emphasizing Atmanirbharta, that is, the need for India to acquire appropriate levels of self-sufficiency as far as the production of arms and equipment for the armed forces, the military, is concerned. This has been a major focus of Modi 2.0, and Mr. Rajnath Singh, as the defense minister, has had this very grave responsibility to discharge. And you will recall that in Modi 1.0, we were not able to have a defense minister with the same kind of experience and full term as Mr. Rajnath Singh has had. So to that extent, I would say that his visit and the importance he has given to Atmanirbharta and improving India's indigenous defense design and production capability has been a very important aspect of his tenure in the last 5 years. We're also aware that Modi 2.0, this government is finishing its tenure, and therefore there is a need to lay strong foundations. And I would interpret Mr. Rajnath's visit to both Italy and France in this particular context. That is the first important element of this visit. The second, to my mind, is that it is also encouraging that in his visits to these two countries, our defense minister is focusing on meetings with the local manufacturers in both the countries, both in Italy and in France. Apart from the official level talks that are held with the ministers, his counterparts in these two countries, that is Rome and Paris, the capitals of Italy and France respectively, we have seen that Rajnath ji has spent a lot of time meeting the manufacturers in both these countries. And I think this could perhaps pave the way for improving or enhancing the possibility of co-production, cooperation, perhaps in technology transfer and design, which is a very closed door area. So it's not easy to get significant levels of cooperation in design. But these are areas that India needs to pursue. And France in particular has a very special relationship as far as India is concerned, which goes back to the early 1950s when we got the first fighter aircraft, the Tufani. And Italy also has a relevance as far as India is concerned. So I think that is the important aspect, that in a way we are reviving and giving high-level ministerial focus to potential for cooperation with two important global manufacturers of military equipment. France, as you know, is listed at number 3 in the global arms suppliers list. And Italy is a very important niche supplier. And we are aware that Italy has in the past provided significant niche equipment to India.
Commodore Bhaskar, as we are talking about this important visit of our defense minister to Italy and France, you rightly brought out that the way for strategic autonomy of our country, we are focusing on self-reliance. And for that, our defense minister has been meeting the original equipment manufacturers, which is like Safran, Dassault, Naval Group, in Italy and France both, and including Airbus also. How do you think is this going to pave way? Because visiting Safran is also hinting towards a major development, because engines have remained a sore point as far as our defense production has been concerned.
I would again review this at two levels. One is the larger strategic dimension, which is that India has got an objective, which, as you have pointed out, is to enhance its index or degree of self reliance as far as military inventory is concerned. Today, while we acknowledge the fact that France is the world's number three in terms of arms supplies, we have to acknowledge also that India still remains one of the countries that is in the top five as far as arms imports are concerned. A couple of years ago, SIPRI had made an assessment and said that India was the top arms importer of the world. So these are the kind of, shall we say, challenges that India has to address. And that is the strategic dimension. That is, India has to be engaging with all the major arms suppliers of the world. And at the same time, it cannot put all its eggs in one basket, as they say. And there is a context again, which is that during the Cold War decades, India had forged a very close relation, both when it was the capital of the former Soviet Union and after the disintegration of the former Soviet Union. India has continued that relationship with Moscow as the capital of the Russian Federation. So that is a historical legacy issue. Concurrently, India has opened a window with the United States after the civilian nuclear deal was concluded in 2008. And in the last decade plus, the United States has also emerged as a significant supplier of platforms, but most of them are in the spectrum of surveillance, reconnaissance, for instance, the maritime reconnaissance aircraft that the Indian Navy has. Similarly, the transport aircraft that the Indian Air Force has. So the United States also has a certain profile in India's arms imports. Now we also have to open another window for the long term with the European Union as an entity, that is the collective, the EU, and with individual nations where there are certain possibilities that we can pursue for mutual benefit. And in this, I have often argued that France is a very important country. One, there is legacy. That in the 1950s, France was the first country that provided India with a modern fighter of that period, the Tufani. And subsequently, we are aware that we got the Alouette helicopter, which we now fly as the Chetak, with HAL producing it. And over the decades, we've had the Mirage and now the Rafale. So there is one component of aircraft, both fixed wing and rotary, that France has supplied, and India has had a positive experience. Similarly, we know that we have engaged with France for the Scorpene submarine. So France is there as an important niche supplier. And I think our own experience is that we may be able to take this forward for co-production and technology transfer. So this would, in a way, diversify India's dependence on foreign suppliers and not make us totally dependent only on one source, as was the case with Moscow during the Cold War decades. Now it is Moscow plus Washington. And I think my interpretation of the Modi vision is that we should have other options where the quantum of technology transfer and design assistance is of a higher order for the long term. We are talking about the next 30, 40 years. And here your observation about the aircraft engine is very important. As we all know, India has had a challenge in terms of being able to design and manufacture its own engine for its indigenous aircraft, the Tejas. While we have a cooperation with GE, it has not reached optimum level. And France has got pedigree, France has got experience, France may be willing to engage with India because France also, I think, is seeking to retain a certain degree of strategic autonomy, just as India does, while both of them are aware that they have a relationship and a dependency on the United States. So that to me is the big picture. And I think Mr. Rajnath Singh is deeply aware of these factors and these issues. And I think his going on this visit in the end of the tenure of Modi 2.0, this term, is an important indicator of the groundwork that is being done to take forward the options or take forward the kind of possibilities that exist for India in terms of enhancing its self-reliance in military manufacturing in India, as also design, which is an important component of this endeavor for Atmanirbharta.
Commodore Bhaskar, you brought out and emphasized two important points: that France has emerged as a trustworthy strategic partner to India. Also, it suits India in terms of its diversification of basket of arms and ammunitions to be imported from other countries. A very important and significant aspect of this visit of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has also been And it has been officially mentioned that the countries which will co-produce in India will be also allowed to export to third countries also. Also, another issue was, and these things have become really important, which is niche technologies, which is like space, cyber, artificial intelligence, and other such technologies. And there was talk, and there has been agreements on this also. So what do you have to say? Because India is really emerging and has been focusing on co-production or self-reliance in these areas also.
These two pillars are very important and they have to be seen in tandem. Number one, improve self-reliance and the ability to manufacture equipment in your own country. I think India is now focused on that. We have to see as to what kind of success we will have over the next 4 or 5 years. But a lot of work has been done, and I'm hopeful that we will have some success in the years ahead. The other pillar, which is very important, is that we must also be a credible arms supplier to countries that are looking at India for partnership. And this is where the credibility of equipment is very, very important, so that we emerge as a reliable partner for supplying certain types of military equipment. And this is where I think the kind of agreement that we have with countries like France is very critical, meaning the United States does not encourage, as of now, production of its own equipment for export purposes. Whereas, this is my reading at this stage, it may be early, France perhaps may consider this mainly to enhance its own profile in the global market, meaning India has a number of assets, particularly as far as human resource is concerned. And just as we have demonstrated in the automobile industry, if certain niche categories are identified, India plus France will bring greater weight to the table than France alone or India alone. And these can be the kind of equipment that are below a certain median in terms of ordnance and firepower. For instance, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief is a very important area. Now, France is also keen to engage in the activities of the Indo-Pacific. While it is not a member of the Quad, it has a different kind of relevance in the Indian Ocean and is partnering with India in certain activities. So hypothetically, if India and France were to identify certain areas of platforms that would be relevant as far as some activities like HADR are concerned, it would be very helpful, particularly for the smaller island states. And these can be the kind of platforms, say, for instance, patrol vessels, which are very, very critically required, or for the Coast Guard. India has expertise. We just need to improve the production levels and efficiency levels. So I think this would be an important aspect. And my sense is that India would be exploring all these options with France for the long term. We are talking about a partnership for the next 20 to 30 years. And I think Mr. Rajnath's visit is laying the foundation for that kind of a cooperation.
Commodore Bhaskar, the way you have expanded and expounded the thoughts on this important visit of our Defense Minister Rajnath Singh to Italy and France, it is going to unravel the significance to our listeners who will be able to understand this strategic relevance. Thank you so much. And listeners, we had with us eminent strategic thinker and analyst, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, to unravel the important aspects of Defense Minister Rajnath Singh's visit to Italy and France.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India-France Annual Defence Dialogue, Fostering Stronger Defence Ties. The participants were Commodore Uday Bhaskar, Defence Analyst, and Mayank Singh, Journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on a YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.